Good evening. Happy Monday. Hello, hello, welcome. Hi to some of my lovely PDS members. I get to see you on a regular basis. So nice to see you guys popping in here to check it all out. Hello. Hello, hello to some faces I don't get to see very often. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I like that name, Regina. Internal Peace Now. Love that. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Um, so if you are not familiar, and if I'm sure most of you know why you're here today, but hello and welcome. I'm excited that you're here. We are talking a little bit today about just like what it looks like to be a relationship coach. So if people have ever thought about it, had questions, or if you just kind of wanted to listen in to some of the other things that we work on through the personal development school, today is a great day for that. So before we start, I would just love to, hear where you're from, what brought you here today. Hi, everybody. I see some of our lovely PDS members in here being like, hello. I'm here to just check it out, see what's going on. So let me see here. Hi, Peggy, and OC, welcome. No, you were just a minute early. We're just starting at 5:30 sharp, Stephanie. I love that you're here and ready to go. Hi, Lisa and Shelly from Australia. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Tina, where is it where you are? It's like 5:30 in the evening my time, so you must be in maybe Australia or somewhere on the other side of the world. Hello, Steve. Regina, glad you're here. Yeah, somewhere the other side of the world, Tina. I just saw you with that confirmation. Hi, Sean. It's not a PDS class, but we're just talking about IET tonight, how it works, because a lot of people have questions all the time. So we try to do like a little kind of information session, chat about everything once a month or so if people have questions about it. Started watching your videos after a breakup. So happy I did. I'm glad to hear that. Jan, I always wondered where you were from. I always noticed it was a different time of day on the webinars than where you were. So it's good to know Germany. Now it makes sense. We'll be doing like a morning webinar. It's like nighttime where you are, or I always notice those little things. Hi, Emma from Spain, Jessica from Virginia, Orlando, Florida, Taylor, Windsor, Ontario, Canada, fellow Canadian. South Florida, amazing. Hi, everybody. Wow, so many great shares. Manitoba, very cool. Another Canadian. Texas, hi, Callie. Brookfield, Wisconsin. Yeah, Australia, Tennessee, amazing. So many amazing just locations and places that everybody's kind of coming in from. So today we are going to talk all about what from Lebanon, wow, Bali, all over, very cool. So today we're going to talk all about what integrated attachment theory is and really what the whole process is of becoming a certified relationship coach, what that looks like, questions you have. This is the time. This is like the information session for you to dive in, ask anything. We get so many emails all the time from people being like, oh my gosh, what does it look like? What do we do? And so this is just the place to really dive into understanding all of it and really getting into all of the nuanced details. We're going to be covering a little bit about first and foremost, what integrated attachment theory actually is, and really these six major pillars of true healing. And we'll talk about what the difference is between traditional attachment theory and integrated attachment theory. But most importantly, this one key ingredient that, in my opinion, is the most important thing that we need to be able to leverage for our own healing or for the healing of other people in our lives. So, your clients or future clients, if you decide you want to get certified. So we'll talk about the pros and cons. I'll be really honest of like all the good stuff and the challenges that come up, and what those challenges are and how to mitigate those things. And we'll talk about just the IIT program, the itinerary, why all the sort of ins and outs and nuances of it are really meaningful in the industry that we're in, or if you're thinking about getting into this industry or space. And then we'll just share some stories of other people who've been through the program, what that's been like, and we'll cover all of that. And then if you stay until the end of the masterclass here today, you'll be able to draw from the end of this a powerful tool that will just help you with really surfacing different subconscious beliefs to the conscious mind's level. There's a little exercise, a tool, whether you use that for yourself or if you're already in practice in some way, if you're using this for somebody in your life. And it's one of the most powerful tools to gain deep insight into somebody's blocks that are actually preventing them from achieving their highest potential. And if you decide that you are interested in joining IAT and jumping into one of our cohorts, then you'll also get a special discount at the end of this webinar, so you can check that out as well. So my first question for you, and I love asking this because I love hearing people's answers to this. Still so many people, wow, from Utah, LA, all over the place. Very cool. Um, so one of the questions I love, yeah, the meeting's about an hour long. One of the questions I love to ask people is if you are somebody who came into this class today, I am so curious, like what you're hoping to take away from it. Are you looking to be somebody who's like, okay, in the future, I actually want to work with people one-on-one. I want to be a high impact relationship coach. I want to help people transform. I want to work from wherever I can in the world. Have you thought about what that looks like for you? And I love hearing people's just shares and answers, whether it's like the industry you see yourself working in, and where in the world you're working from. Are you working from home? Are you traveling around? And have you sort of thought about what that looks like or have a vision for yourself and who you might be working with? Is it, people coming out of a tough marriage? Is it people coming out of a really difficult childhood? What is that sort of space in which you want to find yourself working with other individuals? Okay, what do we have? Yeah, work with people one-on-one. That's beautiful. iPhone, is that our iPhone from PDS? I never know because there's quite a few. Um, oh, hi, Emma. Nice to see some of you guys. I still haven't seen some of you for a little bit, and it's like, oh, hello. To get a realistic idea of what it really is to work in the coaching industry and whether or not it would suit me. Okay, that's perfect. Today we're really going to cover that. I'm going to give you like the best parts of it, the most amazing parts. I'm going to tell you the hard parts too. Like some of the hard parts are like not taking your work home with you, So we're going to cover all that stuff and how to mitigate on that and dive into that. So any questions you guys have when we get to those parts, let me know. Taryn says, I've been a dating and relationship coach with a focus on attachment theory for the past 5 years, but I'm not certified as an attachment coach. I'm curious what getting certified would help me do that I don't do already. Oh, I'm really excited to share some of this with you, Taryn. I think you'd find some really cool points that maybe really help with different tools and just approaches you can take that make a huge impact. But we'll get into all the itinerary, all the things that we'll cover. All of the above, iPhone, awesome. Upgrade my already existing skills while working as a parenting coach. Beautiful. I love that space. I want to be a relationship coach. I want to get a bigger picture. Um, Jan, I love telling people what to do. That's pretty funny. um, Confidence in stepping, Taylor says, out into relationship and life coaching, specifically centered around understanding attachment styles, leaving the banking industry. Wow. So a really cool life change, it sounds like a really cool transformation into where you might be going. And one of the cool things we cover in the program, and I won't spoil it too much now, but one of the cool things we cover is we go through business week. And the program, it's about 4 hours of just like curated business content, all from step one, where it's like how to actually register your business, all of the action steps to do so, how to create your business plan, how to pick a niche. We go into so much detail. And it acts as a guide for you where like each week you can do a couple of things on the checklist and you can move through it and we'll give you like this massive layout of all of the things you need to do in a pre-recorded way. And then on top of that for business week, we do a 2 hour session of just open Q&A. So you come in, you ask your questions, I help you choose your niche, give recommendations sort of that are the inside scoop. So there's a lot in there if you're thinking of making a big career change. And we even talk about how to make a career change. So for example, how to actually map everything out for yourself, build a wait list in advance before you make the career change and build your funnels in advance so everything's working for you. There's lots of cool, really fun stuff in there on Business Week that are great if you're changing industries. Just some tools to have in case I actually want to be a relationship coach. I love that, Corey. That's so cool. And it's really beautiful to be investigating. And I think you have a heart for people. I always notice that in our webinars. So Rachel says, I want to work from anywhere in the world and work on one-on-one, watch people transform. Beautiful. Absolutely working with people. I love learning and studying how our minds and brains work. That's what I see so often is just this, I think we know deep down if we just always had this huge curiosity for people and this huge care for people, and it's always just been something that really draws you in naturally. And that's always some important feedback if that's something you're doing in your spare time anyways. It's like, well, interesting. You could get paid to do that. And if that's really fulfilling, it could be a beautiful thing. Um, Applying to be a clinical counselor, want to coach while I study and get the heck out of people analytics. Beautiful. I love that. And it's such a beautiful, like real experience. Oh my goodness, there's a ton of amazing answers. Okay. I am going to come back at the end of this and just like copy these all out and read through and just hear more about each of your individual stories because there's so many, but we've got a lot to cover. So, thank you to everybody who shared all of these beautiful shares. So, here's what we're going to talk about, okay? Integrated attachment theory first. I just want to go through and tell you what it is if you're unfamiliar. I think some of you are in PDS and you're like, I know all about this, but some of you might be newer to this here today too. And so integrated attachment theory was a copyrighted process that we went through and trademarked and really built out after a decade of research and myself personally working in client practice. Seeing about 40 clients a week, which I don't recommend. It's a little too high. Generally you're seeing somewhere between 15 to 20. And when we look at relationships and how they're starting to really take shape in our lives, we look at like, it used to be health was such a focus for people. And then it became, okay, after health, it became life coaching. And we're just starting to see this massive, massive uptick of people starting to be really focused on relationships and relationship coaching. We're kind of catching the edge of this wave. And so much of this is because I think people are finally understanding that, attachment-based coaching, first and foremost, is changing the relationship one person has to themselves, which in turn changes the relationship they have to everybody else around them. And really, the quality of our lives is so largely determined by the quality of the relationships and connections we have with other people, because relationships, along with the relationship to yourself first, literally go with us into every little crevice of our lives. They show up in terms of how you're affected in the workplace, in your friendships, in your family relationships, of course, in your romantic relationships, parenting relationships. I mean, we can just go on and on. And when we really learn to heal and become securely attached, we have so much more inner peace. Our nervous system becomes so much more regulated. We have less triggers and wounds coming up. We know how to self-soothe better. We have healthy boundaries. And all of a sudden, we as individuals become the best version of ourselves. And so to be able to share that with other people, to be able to gift that to other people is just such a beautiful and truly rewarding experience. Now, here's something that's really interesting. And some of you are going to be quite familiar with this who are in PDS, but some of you may not. And one of the biggest differences in regards to integrated attachment theory, besides the fact that it's actually the science and psychology of how we change our attachment style, whereas traditional attachment theory was just about determining people's attachment patterns and styles. Well, how we actually change our attachment style in order for it to truly work and truly last, it 100% must engage the subconscious mind in the process. And if it doesn't, there's a very good chance that we are missing the mark. Okay. So if you did not already know this, 95 to 97% of all of our beliefs, our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions on a daily basis are literally coming from our subconscious mind. Okay, your subconscious mind is your habituated self. Your conscious mind is your logical thinking self. Okay, it's the part of you that you identify as your sense of self, which means when you go through challenges in your life, if you are not targeting the subconscious mind in the process of transformation, it is almost impossible to see lasting change. And we've all experienced this, and I'll give you some examples in just a moment. But not only is your subconscious mind responsible for 95 to 97% of all of your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, actions, and your conscious mind only 3 to 5%, but on top of that, your conscious mind cannot outwill or overpower your subconscious mind. So if you've ever had a goal, and I want you to think about this personally for a moment and see if this is relevant to you, because you'll see how much this shows up for everybody. But If you've ever had a goal that you've set for yourself where you're like, maybe it's a New Year's resolution and you're like, I am going to quit eating chocolate, or I am going to, stop raising my voice, or I am going to, be more vulnerable and open up more. I am going to, whatever it might be that your goal has been. Okay. Have you ever personally had the experience of setting a goal and then it feels like you're really trying to push towards it and then you just fall off? And then you try to push more and you fall off again? And you're like, why can't I just follow through with this freaking goal? You get frustrated. You're like, why isn't this working? Right? And that is not because you're weak or you're not capable or you're not good enough. It's literally none of the above. It is the result of the fact that we are trying to will our way into setting new goals. And guess what? Almost all of the traditional therapy industry is based on targeting the conscious mind. Okay. And that is very limiting. Okay. Every January, exactly, Jan. And literally, it's like, I think that the stat is that 88% of people fail their New Year's resolutions in the first 7 days. And it's like, yeah, because nobody learns how to target the subconscious mind in their process of change and transformation. And so when we see this happening, what's actually taking place is you're trying to control your life with 3 to 5% of the power. And how this actually is extremely relevant to ourselves, okay, or our future clients is that in childhood, everybody gets conditioned in so much depth at the subconscious level. We get conditioned with all of our subconscious programs for what to expect when it comes to connection and love, what our needs should be, what our fears should be, what triggers us the most, what to expect from people, how we communicate, how we deal with conflict. And if we are not consciously aware of our own subconscious programming, guess what we do? We repeat patterns over and over and over again. And we often don't even consciously realize it's happening because the characters in the story change. Okay. So let me give you a personal example. And this is a story I often share to reference this. So when I was a kid, my parents had a very big roller coaster relationship. So if you didn't already know anything about me, I was a fearful avoidant attachment style. It's one of the reasons I'm in love with this work is because it helped me so much on my own personal journey first. And that's why I love to share it so much with others. But my parents had a wildly roller coaster relationship. And I don't say too much about their relationship out of respect to their privacy. But I'll give you a little example. So when I was a kid, I would always see them, going through these really dramatic events and things. And one day I was about 7 or 8 years old and I came down. It was like a weekend morning. I remember coming downstairs and I had this little flowery nightgown on and I was a little, a young little girl. And my dad had this very stern look on his face. And he said, Thais, come sit down. And he sat me down and he said, your mother and I are getting a divorce. And I remember being so sad and I cried and I was so upset and, didn't really know what to do. And then the conversation ended and the day went on and then more and more days went on and then weeks went on. And then a couple months went on and nothing happened. And I remember I would wonder about it every day. I would think, where am I going to live? Who am I going to live with? Am I going to stay in the same school? Am I going to go to a different school? I'd had a friend who had changed schools when her parents divorced. And I remember thinking like, what's going to happen? And nothing really changed in my life. And then about 3, 4 months later, my parents sat me down again, specifically my dad. And he said, Thais, your mother and I are getting a divorce. And I cried and I cried and I was upset again. And then nothing changed again for months. And then this pattern just continued to happen. Every 3 to 4 months, my dad would sit me down and have the same conversation for years, okay, throughout my whole early childhood until one day when I was 15 years old and there was a big dramatic event and they actually divorced. They actually separated and then eventually divorced. And what's interesting about this is how I learned to show up as a young adult. So fast forward to me, I'm like 18 years old. I left home at 17 and I went and lived in another country at 17 years old. I got a soccer scholarship to go off to school. And so left home, went off to university, and I was in my first serious relationship. And guess what I did? I would, I was dating this person. It was my first like really serious relationship where I actually lived with somebody. And every 3 to 4 months, I would say, I don't know if our relationship's working. I don't know if this is the right thing for me. I don't know. And I would try to push this person away. And I did this over and over again. And I had no awareness that I was doing this or why I was doing this or anything. But eventually, because I was going through a lot of other internal challenges in my life, I kind of went through enough where at one point I decided I'm going to look at myself. I am going to look at maybe everybody else isn't the problem. Maybe it's me. And when I was sick and tired of everything being so hard in my life and draining and confusing and sort of hit my own rock bottom, I started to actually reevaluate me. Why am I showing up this way? Why are all these hardships happening in my life? What am I doing wrong? And I just so happened right around the same time to be in a psychology class when somebody said to me, your conscious mind cannot outwill or overpower your subconscious mind. And I remember being like, what? Like, so you're telling me that all of these things I see myself going through, and I tell myself I'm going to change or I'm going to be different, and then I go back into those same patterns. That's because it's not possible to just change like that unless I engage the subconscious mind in the process. And I remember looking around at the rest of the room, waiting for everybody else to have like a look of shock on their face. And it seemed like nobody else, it didn't really land for everybody else the way it did for me. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need to learn everything I can about the subconscious mind. And I became obsessed because I knew that that was going to be the ticket to real change, to real transformation, to real healing. And what was so interesting is when I started to really reevaluate my patterns, I was like, oh my goodness, no wonder I try to push this person away in this way. It's actually a term called trauma reenactment, where we tend to take these things in our lives and replay them at various times as a means to really fulfill this comfort zone of what's familiar. Because strangely enough, even though oftentimes our conscious mind can look at something and say, that's unhealthy, that's not good. Our subconscious mind is really geared towards what's familiar. So your subconscious mind is like, well, this is familiar. And thus it is safe because we've been surviving this whole time. So let's keep finding it. Let's keep repeating it. And if anybody's ever been in a position where they've found themselves going through the same old patterns, being like, why am I back here? Ending up in the same old relationships. Why am I with this type of person yet again? Why am I going through these types of things yet again? That's because your subconscious actually associates those very things with safety, thus familiarity, and thus survival. And so, unless we learn how to actually rewire the subconscious mind in the process of transformation, we will constantly feel like we are going through life, putting the gas and the brakes on at the same time. So, for me, I was like obsessed. I had a lot of inner healing to do beyond just my attachment style. And I got really interested in everything to do with the subconscious mind. So, while I was still in school, my first certification I did a year-long certification in hypnotherapy and didn't love the whole game of hypnotizing people. I just always felt like the power dynamics were a little off, like just that somebody really needed to keep coming back for sessions to get results, where I was like, why don't we just teach people how their subconscious mind works and share those tools and give them exercises and teach them exercises so they can rewire their own subconscious mind, because neuroplasticity is a real thing. Then did another certification in neurolinguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy, somatic experiencing, internal family systems, 13 different certifications in total, because I was addicted to learning for sure at that point. And if you're not familiar with attachment theory, traditional attachment theory is amazing. It teaches us about the 4 attachment styles, but it never teaches us. It says, here's your attachment style, good finding, good awareness. And it never actually teaches us how to change it. It doesn't leverage neuroscience or the understanding of our subconscious mind to create real and true transformation. And so, while it's an amazing framework to start, there are obviously a certain degree of limitations to that, right? Because then people can sometimes get into a habit of going, okay, here's my attachment style. I guess this is just the way I am. I guess I'm just always anxious or avoidant, or these are my patterns. Whereas we can really reverse engineer how to get secure, which we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. So, back to sort of the whole framework of how everything unfolded, I was so obsessed as a young kid at about 20, 21 years old. I was talking every single person in my life's ear off about the subconscious mind and how we can change. And I remember having this friend of mine say to me one day, he said, "Hey, have you ever thought about talking to people?" He was trying to be nice, but I heard him. I heard what he was saying. He said, "Have you ever thought about talking to people about this stuff who are actually interested?" And I remember being like, "Oh, I see. You're not interested in what I'm saying. It doesn't." And I remember sort of being like, "Oh," and having this moment of reflection, like, "Oh, wow, I really do go to preach to all my friends, and they really just don't care about this stuff that much, and maybe I should do something different." And I proceeded to start renting workshop space, little library space for like $30. You could rent in libraries at the time. And I would just go and do these free workshops and have people come. And these workshops started and they had, I remember 15 people came to my first one, and eventually they grew to like 150 people. And I had a really busy practice and a 2-year wait list and all these things. And then I had a 2-year wait list, and I was like, okay, how do I help people who are on this 2-year wait list who are getting frustrated with me that the wait list is so long? And I was like, oh, I'll put content online. And so eventually that evolved into, growing a YouTube channel, and eventually then the personal development school came out of that. And fast forward all these years later, 14 years later or so, we've had about 40,000 people come through, maybe closer to 50,000 students come through the personal development school at this point and take our programs. And I think we've had, 60 million views on YouTube, and I've been really blessed to join podcasts with people like Mel Robbins or Ed Milet or Lisa Bilyeu, people who I looked up to over the years, and eventually wrote 2 books on the subject and published this whole body of integrated attachment theory work, which is the science and psychology of how we actually rewire our attachment style. And this whole entire time, people kept asking me for one-on-one coaching. And there are a lot of people who come into PDS, but I have to tell you, it's a specific breed of person that comes into PDS. You have to be a self-researcher. You have to be a self-starter. You have to be somebody who did the work to find the things out and had a tremendous self-awareness to get to that point yourself. It's a really special type of person who comes in and is like, wow, I'm going to start researching myself. Okay, I'm going to invest in this program. I'm going to be a self-starter. And there is a huge portion of people that aren't that type of personality out there who really need one-to-one support, who really need somebody to sit there, to be there with them, a little bit more hand-holding in the experience of their healing, somebody to talk to face to face. And I realized that, I'm so grateful to be able to share this content, share this material online and do all these things. But there's this huge group of people I don't get to really help or support or reach. And I really knew that in my heart, if I wanted to help more people at the next level, I actually had to teach people how to coach. And so that is where integrated attachment theory training and the certification process came out. And I spent about a year and a half writing the certification and then getting it accredited and the whole certification process formalized. So here's essentially how it works. Okay. There are 5 major pillars and 1 minor pillar to becoming securely attached. Okay. And this is going to sound like a lot of information, but this is all a part of the actual IAT certification program if you want to learn about these different things. And for each of these, really 6 pillars overall, the most important part of all of this is we don't just learn about these things and intellectualize them. This is not a certification for people who just want awareness. This is a certification for people who are like, oh, I want the awareness of my patterns, and then I want the neuroscience of how to change them. Okay. Because there's a tremendous amount of educational information out there in general, in the world. And there's not a tremendous amount of information about how to actually rewire, change things. I think that's going to come up more and more in the next decade, but we're like riding the wave of that just starting. It's a really pivotal time for that happening in the world right now. So your 6 pillars, okay? The acronym for our 6 pillars, and I'll put it in the chat here so you can see it, is CNEBCB. Okay. Changing mine right now. I love that. Changed my life. That's so sweet. Glad PDS is there. I get to see some of you guys on a regular basis, which I'm so blessed to be able to see. And you'll see, is there a wait list for next year if you can't do it this year? Yes, you can actually submit, but you want to share your information with either, you can type to Melanie at personaldevelopmentschool.com if you want to join next year's waitlist. Caleb, great question. So here are the six major pillars, okay? Pillar number one are your core triggers. Okay. Your core triggers, you see them in each attachment style. Anxious attachment styles, what are some of their core triggers or core wounds? The fear of abandonment, the fear of being alone, excluded, disliked, rejected. These are things that get conditioned into people. So, at a very high level, how we obtain our conditioning is through repetition and emotion. It's what fires and wires neural pathways. So, if you grow up in a household as an anxious attachment individual where you have either real or perceived abandonment. Maybe your parents split up and you don't talk to one of your parents much anymore, and that's a deep abandonment wound. Or if you have parents who are very loving, but they work all the time and they're constantly there and then gone for long periods and there and then gone, it feels like love is there and then love is taken away. And if that's repeated enough, it will actually wire into a person's subconscious mind this deep fear of love being taken away, aka abandonment, right? So you can look at some of the different ways we gather these experiences, which you'll learn in depth in the IAT course, in the certification program. But we have core wounds, right? For fearful avoidance, there are a lot around being trapped, helpless, powerless, unsafe, betrayed is a really big one, unworthy, being seen as bad, all these different things. And dismissive avoidance are very much being seen as shameful if they're too vulnerable, or weak if they're too vulnerable, or again, trapped, helpless, engulfed, powerless, these types of things. So each individual has these core triggers they are taking from their own attachment conditioning. And you're not born with those triggers. Okay. They get wired into you through repetition and emotion over time. And we can leverage the same understanding of the neuroscience pieces here for how to rewire them. It's not even that hard. It just requires consistency and commitment. And when people have the ability to do that one-on-one with somebody as a practitioner, it's very, very valuable. Okay. So pillar number one that we rewire our core triggers. And I want you to imagine for each of you, okay, if you have your own attachment wounds and haven't had a chance to work on them yet, what life would have looked like if you just had rewired those things earlier in life, right? I know for me, I had almost all the core wounds when I started this work. And for me as a person, the amount of emotional and mental real estate I got back to think about how to create things or design my life the way I wanted and go out into the world and do the things I wanted to do, instead of every day fighting fires because I was triggered by so many things and then always responding to the trigger or numbing myself from the trigger, right? You get so much mental, emotional energy back, right? So you'll learn the specific neuroscience processes to actually help people rewire those triggers. And of course, how to do that yourself. Okay. So that's tool number one. There's actually four major tools for subconscious rewiring work that you'll learn. Pillar number two, okay, so core wounds, pillar number one. Pillar number two is understanding the roadmap of needs and how they pertain to relationships, okay? So every person has needs in relationships, even dismissive avoidance, when they often don't think that they do. And each attachment style has different needs. And one of the biggest reasons relationships fail is because people tend to give their needs to other people instead of understanding that somebody else may have different needs than them. Okay, so imagine that you're an anxious attachment style. What needs are you going to try to meet for other people? You're going to try to make them feel validated and loved and prioritized and wanted and all these things. And if you are a dismissive avoidant, you may not even want those things. You may want freedom and autonomy in your relationships and respect and appreciation and totally different needs. And what happens is different attachment styles give their needs to their partner and they're often missing the mark. Okay. And on top of that, basically every client you'll ever work with, okay, will come in and you'll say, we're going to do a needs assessment. You'll learn how to do needs assessments for people. And they'll be like, I didn't even know I had needs. Okay. How many of you have had that experience of being like, needs? What needs? Yeah, exactly. Me too. And so, we don't even know those things. So when we learn our own needs, we can become masters at self-soothing and self-regulating. We can actually enjoy building a relationship to ourselves, which is a beautiful thing. And on top of that, we then have the language to share how we best feel loved with other people. Okay. And when we're able to share that, and you can teach your clients that, then because we actually have very specific tools to help them assess their needs, meet their own needs through the specific self-soothing strategies and habits so they can come into relationship to self, feel comfortable and safe spending time with themselves instead of constantly being in avoidance or numbing or escapism, and then have the work to be able to, and this is one of our next pillars, communicate their needs to other people in healthy ways. Okay. 95% of clients I ever worked with, they would say, I would hear all the time, Thais, my husband never listens to me. My wife never listens to me. And we would do an audit of their communication. And I'll be really honest, they just were terrible communicators. Okay. I was a terrible communicator once upon a time. But let me give you an example. You would be shocked at how often people go into relationships and they say, you don't care about me. You never spend enough time with me. You are just not showing up for me as a partner. Guess what somebody hears on the receiving end? Ouch, you're criticizing me. Guess what happened when you were a child and you got criticized? You then got punished. So somebody hears criticism and they brace for punishment. They are not listening to what you need, right? There's a saying, behind every criticism is a need. But people do something called negative framing, where they say, you don't do this, you never do that. Now listen to this by comparison. Hey, I'm feeling a little disconnected this week, and I really value us spending quality time together. Let's plan a fun date night this weekend. Okay? Somebody heard your need, right? It's called positive framing. You frame in what you do want. Now, there's 5 major tools. That's one of the easy, simple ones. For how to properly communicate, okay? And most people have never been taught these things, don't have access to these things. So this is also taught in the course, okay? So we have 3 major pillars that we've covered so far. We have core wounds, okay? Those triggers, we learn to rewire them. Needs, we learn to build in self-soothing habits at the subconscious level so that it becomes natural for us to know and meet our own needs, and then to communicate them with proper communication frameworks that we also wire into the subconscious mind so they feel natural and habituated, so that somebody can change that. Okay, so these are some of the 3 major tools. 4th pillar, rewire your nervous system function and somatically process. Okay, we have to do the body work. We have to get into the body itself. We have to learn how to somatically process, regulate our nervous system. It's a big part of healing. And people who have insecure relationships, they are usually spending far too much time in what's called sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight mode. Okay, you're going to learn all the major tools for how to rewire and how to somatically process emotions. Okay, so here we have your first 4 pillars. Last 2, and I'm just going to touch on them at a high level. Boundaries, okay? How to actually wire them in. You were going to be shocked at how many people learn about boundaries conceptually. Boundaries, oh, I should set a boundary here. Oh, this is a boundary here, but never actually wire them in. And so then you end up in situations being like, oh, that was a time to set a boundary, and then you don't follow through. Because unless you're engaging the subconscious mind in the process, you won't see the needle move, okay? And then we have rewiring unhealthy behaviors, things like activating strategies, deactivating strategies. So watch this. Every single person who's securely attached, when we look at those 6 pillars, what do we have? Number 1, the person who's securely attached, they have less core wounds and triggers, okay? So we're reverse engineering what a securely attached person's natural subconscious mind is full of, right? Less core wounds and triggers. They know their own needs because they're taught them in childhood, okay? They know how to communicate their needs in healthy ways. They have a more regulated nervous system. They have healthy communication patterns in general, but boundaries that go hand in hand with that. And they have healthier attachment behaviors, okay? So what we're doing is we learn to audit all of these things. You'll learn the awareness of each of these 6 pillars per attachment style, the individual roadmap that they all have. And then you'll learn all tools for each of those 6 pillars for how to rewire them at the subconscious level. Okay. And that's essentially the itinerary. And then we go into one of the most fun parts of it is business week. Okay. So then we go into a really in-depth business segment, which is about 3-4 hours of pre-recorded content first that will teach you how to do your whole business plan, how to build funnels, how to produce high-value content online, how to build email automations, how to have all of your systems working for you so that you would never have to go and try to cold call somebody at all. This is not an industry where you should be trying to sell your services. This is your industry where you're going to learn how to provide immense value for people, support them in advance, and have great really powerful content and system setup so that then people come to you and then you can decide which clients you want to see and who's a good fit and how much time you want to spend working with clients one-to-one. Okay. So that you can also build wait lists. You can also have everything set up for success in advance. Okay. So that's a lot of what we cover in the program. But the program actually starts with this prerequisite. You get an onboarding webinar where you get all of your links, all these things showing up to start. And then we go into 4 weeks, and this is a really fun part of prerequisite, okay, which is you actually doing all the tools on yourself first. Here's why. Because the wounded healer knows way more. Okay. If you're just
Yeah.
passing along information from behind a textbook, it's just not the same as if you did it first yourself and somebody shares it with you. Like, I'm going through this, I'm stuck on this, and you have the nuances to be like, oh, I've done these actual exercises. I know how to do this. So you get 4 weeks of the prerequisite. You first start with the onboarding process, okay? And you can kind of go through some of the content early. Then you go into 4 weeks of going through the materials yourself. Okay. You get pre-recorded content each week to digest. It's about 2, 3 hours of content. And then you do a live session. And in your first 4 weeks, you do it with a couple of my colleagues. Okay. So we're trained team members who come in and do all the work at PDS. And after your first 4 weeks, you enter into the 8 week intensive with me. And this is where we spend 8 weeks going through the tools each week that you'll learn. Okay. How to do the rewiring, how to do the reprogramming. I show different live examples throughout the 8 weeks. We do different critiqued examples throughout the 8 weeks. And then after the 2 hour session with me, we say it's an hour and a half, but I always just stay for 2 hours. So you can mark 2 hours off on your calendar in advance. Then we actually go into breakout rooms and we have our lovely Renee and one of our other IAT coaches come in and you can just go into breakout rooms, practice with other students in there, and they give you feedback or answer any extra questions. So you get all this content and training. Then you get to do live Q&A with myself. We showcase the different tools, we practice them together, and then we dive into afterwards the actual practice in smaller groups where you get sort of supervised feedback, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So, that's the itinerary. Okay. Now, what I'll tell you, and it's like such a fun program. I honestly love teaching it so much, but we'll come back to that. Um, so what I will tell you is there's different ways that you can use this content, and I really want to share with you like what it feels like to be in this space. Okay. So I remember a couple of you, Emma was saying earlier, like, what I want to know what it's like. So I'm going to give you really like the cold hard truth. Okay. Um, on one hand, like and I'll keep in mind too, when I first was working with people, this is years ago that I started, and working online wasn't a popular thing then, so I worked in an office and had people come meet me in my office in person. And you can do that totally, but if I was doing it nowadays, I would totally just see people online because you have the freedom, the flexibility. You can work from wherever, you can travel from wherever, which is a really beautiful addition to just designing your life the way that you want, right, on your terms. The best part of it in general, and I'm biased towards this, but the best part of it in general is that you get to meet amazing people and watch them transform. And that's how you spend your time, like having impact, connecting with people, learning every day. You'll learn so much just from talking to people, like the amount of things I just learned about like different jobs that people had and what they were like. And you learn every day, all the time, different cultures and things that people share and go through. It's just such a beautiful experience. And actually seeing people transform is to me one of the most fulfilling things that a person can experience. So that is like the beautiful part. You've got meaning, you've got fulfillment. It's a great career in terms of abundance and financial stability, flexibility in general. You get to design your life, work from where you want, travel if you'd like. I also think it's something great for if you're a parent because you can really see like 3 or 4 clients a day during this space that your kids are at school, be present after school. Like there's just so much there that's beautiful. Here's the hard part, okay? Hard part is that you have to have good boundaries. Because if you learn the hard way, like me, you could get into a place where you're given, I was taking clients for a period of time at like 9 p.m. on certain evenings. And I'll be really honest with you, like IAT, I actually didn't start working with people on attachment theory work for the first 2 years of my practice. The first 2 years of my practice, I was just helping people because I was really in the subconscious mind space first, rewire their core wounds, meet their own needs, regulate their nervous system. And I actually revisited boundaries because I was like, oh, I have my own work to do in my practice here still. And I wasn't in this like fully healed space. And I actually was taking way too many clients that too many people would come to me that I just dearly cared about. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, this has been life changing. My brother is going through the hardest time. Please just see him. And I'd be like, well, the only time I have is like 8:30 on Friday evening. Please, 8:30. It'll make it work, you know? And so you have to have good boundaries. I had to really revisit that and it was good. It was part of what built out IAT long term for sure. It was like, oh, 6 pillars. I have some work to do here. But you have to really have good boundaries, and we will cover that in the actual certification, how to set up boundaries, what's recommended, how to approach situations if you feel like your boundaries are a little bit pushed on from time to time. Because sometimes people out of just they're going through their own things will be like, but please, you have to see me at this time, or you have to do this. So boundaries will be key. That's probably one of the hardest parts, especially because sometimes if you're in a really good space and then you see somebody suffering, it's hard, right? To do that and set your boundary and keep it. But it's also a necessity so that you can continue to, as a person, show up in your own practice with like the abundance of energy that you need to care for people. Um, the next one is not taking on too many clients. Honestly, if you really just follow the business systems that are in there, it will take a little bit of time to set up. It's not going to be like you push play on day one and everything happens immediately. We'll talk about a really good short form structure to get clients in really quick. But the long form structure where you're building this huge abundance and a big wait list of clients, that will be something that takes space over time. If you plug that in and you actually do that work, you'll see that you inevitably have a big wait list of people waiting to work with you. And at that point, you have to make sure that you don't take on too many clients, okay? Not just like boundaries in regards to um, people and communication with people outside of work and things like that, but truly like not seeing too many clients in general will be really important. And then of course the big one is is making sure that you don't take your work home with you. Okay. Because sometimes you're going to see hard things. You're going to see sometimes that somebody you've really cared about is going through a relationship, maybe with a parent or an ex, or they're co-parenting with a narcissistic ex or whatever it might be. And you'll really feel for them. I'm sure every person here today on this webinar is here because you have a heart for people and you care. And you'll have to learn how to work through that in your own time too. And we will cover tools to teach exactly that so that you can really be in this sort of peace of mind space. Um, and I just popped into the chat for half a second. I'm going to catch back up on questions in just a moment. But Bridget just said, how do you make sure you're working with a good fit for a client? So what we actually do is we have a process that we start off with to intake clients to make sure they're a good fit. So you'll actually get intake forms, things that they have to fill out. You'll do some discovery sessions in advance to just make sure that you are with people that are actually a really good fit for you. And we'll talk about what is a fit and what isn't, all that kind of stuff in general. So really great question. Yeah, if somebody's not a good fit for a client, how do you break up with them in a healthy way? You just refer out. So it's not we don't have to do client breakups, but if, for example, you see somebody going through like a deep depressive episode or something like that, and you realize, oh, maybe this person was clinically depressed and they've just never been diagnosed before, and they think it's relationship issues, but there's a deeper problem. We talk in the process about how to build out referral networks, referral programs for people so that you can stay focused on the right things and how to do that. And so it doesn't it doesn't have to be a breakup with somebody. You just move into that space. So all that stuff gets covered. We really go into all the different nuances with things. Gina says, is there a possibility of oversaturation? Yes. Of course, there can be a possibility of oversaturation. In regards to, oh, do you mean in the industry? I thought you meant with clients, like having too many clients. Yes. Okay, let me tell you about the industry for a second here. So, first of all, 50% of people are insecurely attached. Okay, that's like the largest body of data that we have. More recent data actually shows that that's on like it's actually rising up. It's becoming larger and larger. And what's absolutely, and this is like, to me, like I always just think of this wave, and we're just about to catch the wave in the world. But in 2019, the global revenue of coaching was $2.85 billion. And in 2023, okay, the most recent time they really updated this, it was $4.564 billion. So it didn't quite almost double, but coming up on the precipice of doubling in just a very short period of time. And here's what's really interesting. The coaching market is growing so quickly, but The relationship coaching market is just starting. How many of you have just learned about attachment styles in the past couple of years? It's just starting to trend. There is just a wave coming up to be ridden. And truly, what makes for a good business, and this is just the reality of things, when you have a huge industry that's growing rapidly with a very little competition, because in the grand scheme of that whole coaching industry, relationship coaching is a teeny tiny fraction of that, but it's about to keep blowing up. It's just beginning to really take shape. When you have a huge growing industry, with very little competition relative to the rest of the industry, it makes it a hotbed to build a thriving business. That's just it, period, right? And so many of you have probably seen how much like even just attachment styles has really taken form in the last like 2, 3 years. It's just becoming more mainstream. So it's actually probably one of the best markets to get into, period. So it's a great question. And I don't even think there will be saturation in the life coaching market for a very long time. I think that's like 10 years out. But then the relationship coaching is going to have a lot of longevity after that because life coaching has been something that's kind of been trending for the last like 15 years, kind of starting to take shape, and now it's growing, and we're not even at the peak of that yet. And relationship coaching is quite a few steps behind. So you're going to see a tremendous amount of growth in that space over the next few years in a really good way for business. And when I think of just in general, and maybe this is me being like a little too idealistic sometimes. But, I like to think of this, the beauty of like this industry in general, as like when we're helping people, like if you're working with adults, if you're working with young adults or people later in life, I like to think of the ripple out effect that has because you think of, 50% of marriages end in divorce, which of course mirrors the 50% of people being securely attached, 50% of people being insecurely attached. They run in parallel for a reason, of course. But you think of how like divorce, unhealthy relationships, fatherless homes, poor communication, all these things are so tough on kids. And I like to imagine like what the world would be like if we had more parents and adults who in advance had the right tools, had the right learning, and were then able to show up for their children in different ways so that kids can actually have parents who teach them the right things and the ripple out effect that has on generations to come. And even if we're just together like a little drop in that bucket, like to me, that makes my heart so full to just think about like all the impact that's not just on individuals, but the family around those people too. And so, it's a great question, beautiful share. So, going back here, and let me just catch up on a couple other questions. I see a lot of people asking the next actual cohort for everybody who is asking begins September 17th, but we don't technically start the cohort. That's when the actual classes start. We start the cohort a little bit in advance so you can do your onboarding properly. You can start going through your prerequisite course materials because we hit the ground running. The 12 weeks, you're going to learn a lot of information. And there's a lot of really exciting stuff and tools. And so we give you some of the course material a month in advance so you can onboard, go through it, and get really, really prepared. And the next actual onboarding starts. The next actual onboarding class is Friday, the 22nd of August. So if you want to get in sooner rather than later, that's coming up quite shortly to be able to dive into. And I will just share some details about like the rest of it, the pricing, all that kind of stuff for anybody who's asking. But I want to go back and share as well just a couple of stories of how you can use this. If you want to use this for career coaching, for one-to-one, for couples, for group coaching, for retreats, like there's different models that we cover in Business Week about this a lot, but I'll just share some stories of past students so you see how you could potentially use this if it's something of interest to you. Right now, so originally the program, so it goes for 12 weeks. You get about 30 hours of the pre-recorded content, and then we do 2 hours of live sessions every week, plus the practice and the breakout rooms for another hour and a half afterwards. So there's a lot in there. But today we're offering it for a 50% discount because it's early bird right now for anybody who's here, plus an additional $300 off. And we have it set up for payment plans, so it's affordable and accessible to anybody who's really feeling interested in doing it. And we have payment plans that are as little as $289 a month. But we also have an on-demand option too. So if you can't make the live time, because it's September 17th at 6 p.m. Eastern, and if you can't make that live time of those actual classes on Wednesdays, Then there's an on-demand version, or if you just need a different price point that works for you. And essentially, how it works is at the end of 12 weeks, you take your exam and then you're certified. And then there's an accreditation process. It's sort of the gold standard. You want to be certified and accredited. And this program offers both. So it's like very well recognized in the industry. And if you want to do on demand, that will be if you take payment plans as little as $169 a month across 12 months. So there's different options. We have that all the price points in there that Renee can put in the chat. There are a limited number of spots per cohort as well. We have actually been like the past couple of cohorts, they we filled them. And then some. So we're like, oh my gosh, we have to make sure that we're mindful of that. I think there's a lot of demand around this in general. And I will just say one last thing, just in regards to how people have tended to use the program. And then I'm going to come in and answer all of the questions that I haven't gotten to yet. Um, so we have a few different ways people tend to use these, and this is what we've seen in past graduates. So we had Jennifer Noble, for example. She was actually one of our very first cohort graduates. She went on to build a wonderful business and just did a TED Talk on attachment styles about a year back, which was pretty cool, and shared a little bit about our program and the TED Talk. We have Emily Blaine, who used her coaching certification to build a retreat-based business where she actually leads. And sorry, just a reminder for everybody to mute themselves. Someone has like a little stomach rumbling or something in the background. I don't know, Renee, if you're able to just go see whoever that might be. Okay, we got, I think you got them. Sometimes, somehow somebody sneaks in and unmute. I don't know how. Sometimes we have PDS webinars and every so often we'll just like hear somebody's phone conversation. We're like, no, 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 your privacy, wait. So anyways, in our PDS webinars. So we had another woman, Emily, and she went through, built her relationship certification, and does retreats around the world, which is so cool. So she'll do like 4 retreats a year and she'll just travel to different locations. She actually does it with her partner and then leads these couples retreats and goes through this sort of couples intensive. We have Annette De La Barbara, who actually hired into PDS, and she has a wait list of clients she sees. Well, she's every time I talk to Annette, I'm like, where are you in the world today? Like just from all over the world. And then we have Ben Dawson, who actually did his certification and was really interested. He had a really strong corporate background and went into helping people improve their workplace relationships because those 6 pillars are so pertinent to the career space. So he, like the core wounds, what are your wounds in a career? That can be feeling not good enough, unworthy, so you don't ask for a raise or don't try for your goals, right? So you rewire your core wounds, you learn your career needs, you learn to regulate your nervous system, you learn better communication and boundaries to prevent burnout at work. And then you learn to rewire healthier behaviors, right? And so what he actually does is he speaks at corporations for $5,000 for a half day workshop. He does 2 or 3 of those a month. And then from there, out of those workshops, people always ask to work with him. And so then he sees people on a one-to-one basis to help them with career coaching, using the certification itself and really fundamentally working off of the neuroscience of how to rewire your subconscious mind in these 6 particular pillars. So there's lots of different uses. And what we actually cover in Business Week is how to use these things. We let you use some of the different, if you're going to do little presentations, I share with you the different sort of slides you can use, and you're able to use those slides for your presentations, to build funnels, to do different things. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that we get into in general. And again, it starts with that 12, you get a prerequisite onboarding, go through the course material for the first few weeks, really get clear. And then the cohort officially starts. You dive in, and your first 4 weeks are going through it all yourself. And then we go into the 8 week intensive, all yourself, like you're actually going through the tools. You do the material and the coursework. Then you join a live class each week for that will be led by Ben, and Renee as well. Will be in there. And then after those days, we enter into the 8 week intensive with me. We do an hour and a half to 2 hour sessions. When those sessions finish, we then do the practice afterwards, where you go into breakout rooms, you practice the tools. After we do the Q&A and showcasing the tools and doing them together, either live examples or we do them all in the chat together too, rapid fire. Sometimes we really change it up so that everybody feels like they get the opportunity to practice. And I just want to say as well, for some people who are like, oh my gosh, 6 pillars and neuroscience and the subconscious mind, it may sound like a lot, but truly the program is designed. We do so much like review and practice and rapid fire practice that truly at the end, you will know all of the tools inside out, like the back of your hand. And you'll feel like, okay, I got this. And every single cohort we have, I always see by like week 9, 10, 11, people are like, I'm working with all these practice clients already. And like people are just feeling ready to go. So you will definitely have a really good sense of like, here's where we're at, here's what to do. So you'll feel very comfortable with all the materials too. Okay, so let me just see. Helping people in this way sounds incredible. Love to connect with anyone who's gone through the program. Yeah, we should honestly bring somebody in here. It'd be a cool idea to bring somebody here to like share or talk about it or something like this. I always feel like we only have a quick hour, but maybe we can extend it a little bit if people have more questions, because that would be so, so cool. Um, and let's see what else, Renee. I'm sure you're probably sending me questions. I just want to take a moment. And all of that, by the way, if you have any additional questions, you can reach out. Okay, so let me say 2 more things in case anybody has to leave right at the top of the hour here. And then I'll go through and answer all the questions. But if you want to book a call, if you just want more information, we offer the original discount. So the original like half off early bird discount right now, plus the additional $300 because or $200 because you were on this actual webinar. And if you still have more questions, we have that running for another 48 hours from today. But if you book in a call, if you just have more questions and you don't want to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to make a decision within 48 hours, you can just book a call with Melanie at personaldevelopmentschool.com. And she'll answer any additional questions you have. Renee as well, if you want to put your information in there. And you guys can jump on a call with them if you have more questions and just say you were on this webinar and they'll still honor that as well. Second thing, everything, yeah. So the on demand, yeah, only the live version is accredited. Yes, that's a really important thing to note. So yeah, the time difference. I know eventually we're gonna have to do something for all of our lovely individuals in the UK. We do have a lot of people who come in, I swear to you, at like 2 in the morning, like warriors, like coming in, their like backgrounds all dark and they come in and they do it. And I'm like so amazed at people's commitment for that. But yes, the reason that you only get the accreditation for the live is just that there has to be a practicum component for accreditation because it is the gold standard. So you do have to have some time where you jump into breakout rooms where you have the time to go through it. The on demand is still certified. So you can, it's still certifiable. You can still get the whole certification. You can definitely still launch a business with it, all that good stuff. But the accreditation is more for like just the credibility. If people ask any of that stuff, it will make a big difference. Oh, amazing. That's so sweet, OC. I love that. OC's like, did the call today with Melanie. It was a wonderful call. If you're curious and want to dive in, go all in. That's so sweet. So inspiring. I love that. Thank you, Taylor. Awesome stuff. So let me know any other questions you have in here. Let me just see if I'm sure Renee, you've been sending them on the other side here. So a couple of other things. If anybody has any other questions I didn't get to, please drop them at the bottom. What makes the live, Bridget, stand out from the on-demand training? Okay, great question. The live is the fact that there's just so many extra practice hours. So the live, like when we meet together for the live, I'll do the tools live and I'll show you them. And we'll do a variation. So live tools can take a little bit of time to showcase sometimes. So sometimes I'll do a tool live for 20, 30 minutes. You'll see me sort of go through it with somebody, and then we'll do a critiqued tool. And we'll usually have something most of the sessions that way. And other times I'll be like, okay, we're going to do it together as a group. And we'll start in the group and I'll say, okay, if this is the situation, tell me what you would do. And we sort of rapid fire through them. It's actually really fun. And then afterwards, if you just want more like in-depth practice with people, that's where then you get to stick around. And then you actually get to go through and practice the tools in the post-breakout sessions and get feedback as well. So there's a lot of just extra time for practice, for feedback, for everything in general. And yes, accredited by the Association for Coaching, which is one of the top top organizations in general. Is it possible to work just a couple days a week as a coach? I'm afraid I'll get too much work. I feel like you would do very well. It seems pretty flexible. So 100%. So one of the coolest things, and we actually cover this in Business Week too, is that we go through how you design your life. And really, it's an option, right? So a lot of people come in who are, single parents, and they're like, okay, my kids go to daycare from 9 until 2. And so they'll drop their kids off at daycare. They'll schedule their coaching session so that they have a coaching session at 9:30, 11, at 12:30 or so. And then they go and they pick up their kids. And realistically, you are doing very well. Like you can sort of think about it, the going industry standard rate for just one-to-one, so not couples. Couples you usually charge a little bit more, but the going industry standard is about $150 a session. So you can decide, right? Like if how much or little you want to work. And you could really make a good living, having, let's say you just do short periods of time from like 9 until you're wrapping at 2 o'clock, and you see people 5 days a week that way. You'd still, I think that's going to come out to around a six-figure salary for the year, just kind of working half days 5 days a week. Or if instead you're like, I just want to do two longer days a week, then you can do that, right? Where you see 6 clients 2 days a week. Like really the average sort of amount of time that you'll see people will be somewhere between 15 to 20 clients a week is sort of the general industry standard. But of course, you can see a little bit more. I think eventually if you get too close to 40, it gets a little too busy because you also need time to work on your business. I usually recommend about 5 hours a week, just working on your business, right? Your emails, organizing your notes, scheduling everything. Eventually, you can also just get a VA to schedule. For VAs, you can get a good VA for like $300 a month that does all your schedule for you. So it's streamlined, but just things like tweaking little marketing funnels or some of the things that you're doing for your email list, all those things that we'll cover. So generally you want to think of how many hours a week do I want to work? What hours do I want to work? And then you can sort of map out how much money that looks like you're making. And then from there you can be like, okay, and at that point, I'm designing my own life, right? Like at that point, you get to be like, okay, I want to work half days. I want to make good money, but I want flexibility. That's really big for me and what I'm looking for right now. Or you can be like, I want to grind for a couple of years and really, get really busy and do a lot and then kind of take some space and take it easy after. So you can really like design your life to your liking and build your funnels accordingly. So really, really great question. The other thing too is for people who I see a lot of people just asking about if you're not able to make the live, what you can do is you can join the on demand. And then when you're able to come to a live, we always just honor if people want to come to the live to get the accreditation piece. You can always get the certification, start organizing your business. And then when there's a time that does work for you to come to a live, and we are thinking about trying to add something eventually that's a different time zone for people in the UK because we're getting a tremendous amount of demand from different countries. But you can come in and you can just pay the difference and join right into the actual live as well if you want to pursue that accreditation piece afterwards. So great question. Oh, this is so sweet. So was also on the call with Melanie earlier. She was so helpful and answered so many questions. Amazing. So yeah, if anybody has questions, just follow up and you can go through everything in general there. Corey says, what can you say to somebody who thinks it's a daunting task to become a coach, especially if they feel like they can't even help themselves? Here's what I would say. I would say, and I think this is the defining difference. Okay. So, and I shared this with you guys earlier. Like when I first started working with people, I'd done a lot of healing in like nervous system work and core wounds and learning my needs. And it was really peaceful on my own. And then and for me, that was just so much healing compared to where I was before that. But I also was like, oh my gosh, I have boundary work to do. I have communication work to do. Like I had to still do other things. And I evolved while I was working with people. And I'll be really honest too. One thing you'll see all the time in your first couple of years, as long as you're plugged into doing the work. I can't tell you how many times in the first 2 years I would work with people and somebody would bring something up and I'd be like, wow, I do a little bit of that sometimes. And then I'd be like, okay, I got to take that home with me and go work on that. And one of the cool things, honestly, is that you'll see into all these different intricacies of patterns and themes, and you'll see where some of those themes are yours and why. And it's such a beautiful experience to see into the inside of like so many people's lives. It's just such a, I don't know, it restores faith in humanity. If you are lacking faith in humanity at any point, it's just you really see like the innocence in people and why they do what they do and where it's from fear or hurt or, I remember being like, so like, oh, like I can't believe that people cheat in relationships and judging it. And then working with so many people who had done that, who had been in that, and just seeing like all the story that led up to it and just having such a big heart for people going through that. Not saying that like that's great, everybody should cheat in relationships, but just having so much more like room for everything after. Like just I don't know, it's a beautiful thing. It really opens your empathy and understanding in ways where you don't become afraid of things or judge things or anything like that. So, anyways, besides that, um, the biggest thing is honestly nobody needs to be perfectly healed to be a coach. There's no such thing as perfect healing, anyways. The one thing that I say is you have to make sure that you are doing the work. That's the one thing because you want to be able to go home and be like, oh, if this came up for me today, I'm going to work on it, and work through it and have that like space and room. And that's where like there's just then everything that happens. And I'll actually say this too. One of the things about working with people is it kind of forces you, and there's a bit of responsibility in this, but it forces you have to be at your best all the time. Like you have to sleep well, you have to get your at least 7 hours of sleep a night. You have to be in a place because you will have to be on a little bit. You'll have to be ready and like ready to hold space and be present. And so there's a responsibility to that, which I remember in the first year of working with people, I was like, oh wow, this is like my sleep and eating schedule has to be under control. My morning routine has to be top tier. And remember feeling like, oh, there's like I have to just be really on top of these things. But then after a year of just being in that and habituating that in, I'm actually so grateful for that because it forces you have to take care of yourself so that you can show up for other people really well. And we actually do chat about that in the program as well. So I'll just answer. I know we're a good bit over time, but I'll just yes, of course, Kate, you can obtain the accreditation post certification. Exactly. Um, at what week could someone join the live transferring from on demand? So you would just do it at the start of another cohort. So you would come in and you would have to go through the whole live experience, like the whole 12 weeks of the post classes and stuff. But you would already be ahead, and then it would just be a question of like, when are you coming in from that cohort specifically? So we're trying to run them like every quarter, every 6 months. We're trying to sort of play with the cadence because we're getting a lot of demand right now. So we're trying to make sure we can show up enough to support everybody who's interested as well. So I'll keep that sort of space there. The pay difference iPhone between, do you mean between on demand and um, the live? Is that what you mean? And yes, I'll clarify cohorts versus classes. Lots of good questions. So the difference is, and Renee, so um, the live for non-early bird pricing sits at around $6,000. We do it half off for all early bird pricing. Usually they just fill it with early bird. So that's $29.99. And then we offer an additional discount for everybody today joining the class. But in payment plans, I believe the difference is $169 a month for on demand or $289 a month for live. And there's other payment plans. That's just like the sort of standard 12-month payment plan. And you can get your certification. Some people are like, oh, what if I am on a 12-month payment plan, but I finish in 12 weeks? We honor people, we trust people to just be able to do their certification, accreditation, start your business, do your thing, and then just finish out your payment plan. We just trust that people will continue on with that in good faith. Cohort versus classes. So cohort is the 12 weeks, right? So the cohort is the 12 weeks if we do a class every week for 12 weeks. Again, there's like the pre sort of part, the onboarding, all that stuff, but that's the cohort time, the time from like beginning, like you sign up till you complete the certification. And you actually have up to 3 months after you complete your 12 weeks of classes to then take the test to get certified. Okay, so that's cohort. And then classes are just the classes we do each week together. Does that make sense? So, like, you come in, we do the live classes together, we do the actual sessions, practice, all that good stuff together. What happens if you miss one day of the live? You have a surgery on Wednesday that time? Yeah, it's recorded, so you don't have to worry. If you ever have to miss one day, that's totally okay. And then what you can do is you can jump in and just watch the recording from that week after the fact. So great question. Yeah, awesome stuff. And I hope your surgery goes well and you're okay. What is the industry standard for couples? Also groups per person? Yeah, we get into all of this in so much detail at the end of all of the, like we go through business week. Generally, industry standard for couples, you're doing slightly longer sessions, about an hour and a half. They're usually ranging about 200 to 225 per session. And Couples, you're usually charging $40 a person. We're doing them in larger groups of people. And really $40 is also for like a sliding scale for people who can't afford, right? So you can have like sort of group sessions. We talk about how to do them, what I recommend for group sessions, how to structure them. I mean, oh, there's so much I could go into, but I would go on forever. And we'll cover all of it in Business Week, like in tremendous amounts of detail. So you will see all of that. You can take the on demand anytime. Does the certification accreditation expire? No, and none of your materials expire. You get the materials for life. You get your accreditation, your certification for life, and you also get to use certain tool like a lot of the slides and things like that, as long as you're not posting them online as your own content without citing them, for your own like personal use, like for your clients, all that stuff. Every worksheet you could ever use with clients, you get to keep for yourself. So you literally have it all mapped out that you just like print off your worksheets, you use them with clients as if they're yours. Everything that you need to succeed, intake forms, liability forms, every single one of the major rewiring tools, everything is like worksheets there for you to use with your clients as if they're yours. And in various contexts. If you're doing like a corporate webinar presentation, you can use some of our slides, all that stuff. So that is all covered in there. Great questions. And I'm just going to rapid fire two or three more. Are you able to work with your team in PDS, or is this different? It is different. We don't necessarily like hire everybody out of each cohort or anything like that. But there every so often we do obviously grow our team at PDS and hire people on. And to be perfectly honest, yes, like we're only really going to hire people that are people facing who are IAT certified for our internal business. But there's no guarantee at all that anybody who takes a certification will become a part of the PDS internal team, just in fairness. But you can definitely apply if we have openings, and you can let us know you're IAT certified, and there's definitely a good advantage there for sure. Um, what else do we have here? I think I'm getting through almost all these. Industry standard. What if you don't pass the test? I don't think we've ever had somebody not pass the test. You get three attempts, and if anybody forever, the test is not meant to be really hard. It's meant to, and I really prepare you for it. We review stuff each week in accordance to the test, and it's open book, and we want to make sure that it's there for you. So if you ever don't pass the test, you can just reach out to like info at Personal Development School and our team, and they'll jump in and just make sure that you have another chance or help get you some extra support in there. So you will definitely be able to pass. So great share. Do we cover just how to cite the material? Yes, we do. Absolutely. The next live cohort is September 17th is the official date itself, if that makes sense. But we start the next onboarding for it. And it's okay if you miss the onboarding webinar, because we will do another one, but the next onboarding webinar is the 22nd of August. The coaching certification is valid for life. Yes, exactly. Valid for life. If we sign up, do you have instructions on how to get started? Yes, that's the onboarding webinar. You map everything out. You'll see where to join, how to use the materials. All that stuff is organized there for you. And that is it for today. I know we're way over time. I got all the rapid fire questions out. Just wanted to say a huge thank you for being here. I'm honored that you all even attended here today, and that there's so much interest. I'm just always like blown away and so grateful that we're getting to share this with more people and put that out there. Again, Renee, if you want to just post that one more time, just the links to sign up for with all the information, or you can also jump on a call with Melanie at personaldevelopmentschool.com, or Renee at personaldevelopmentschool.com. And you redeem the discount. That link actually has the discount in there already, so it'll just like automatically apply. Or if you do a call, you can just let them know, hey, here is the actual. I was on this IIT webinar, and I'm going to use my discount accordingly, and they'll give you a coupon code to be able to honor that if it's outside of the 48 hours, so that you still have the ability to do that if you booked a call within that period of time. Do you need to continue to take CEU credits after your exam and certification? No, you're just done. You get your exam, your accreditation, and you're good to go. Okay, thank you all so much. Appreciate you all being here. I hope to see some of you on the other side. I'll see some of you in PDS webinars too. And I hope everybody has an amazing evening. I'm so excited for you guys to join in there too. Stephanie, thank you. And have an amazing evening. And I will see you soon. Bye, everybody. Good night. Thank you.